And just for clarification purposes, you do give me permission to repurpose this content with your name and your face on it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So my name is Jeremiah Rankins. I'm a licensed professional counselor in the state of Texas. I primarily focus on at-risk youth in the population of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice and TJJD, which is the juvenile detention in the juvenile detention prison system. And I also focus on foster care youth. But my primary focus in my private practice is immigration evaluations and psychological services for the global community. Go ahead.
Okay. So can you describe to me the nature of your work?
Sure. So typically, I'll have people who will call into my phone, my office. I'll pick it up here or remotely. It goes to my cell phone. I have an application called Ring Central. And so I'll take these consultations over the phone immediately if I'm not in session. And I'll ask, what is it that they need? Sometimes they don't know. Sometimes people they allow their attorney to do all the work. They trust the attorney, and the attorney says you need a psychological evaluation. They say okay. They call me, and I'm like, what type of evaluation do you need? Sometimes I'll have a family who reaches out because they need therapy. They want therapy for their family, themselves or their family. And so there's children involved. And so I just do a simple consultation over the phone, see if I can help. Then there's an intake process, the first session, and we just kind of get into it. So there's two major parts of the practice. One side is the therapy with immigration, with the global community. So there's the therapy, and then on the other side is the psychological evaluations.
Oh, that's really nice. Um, so what are the qualifications to do immigration evaluation?
That's a good question. So a lot of times I get that question, and I always respond the way that it should be done is a fully licensed mental health clinician who has the experience and has the training to do these reports are qualified to do these the psychological evaluations. That's the safest way to respond. Now there is a way for practitioners who are not fully licensed to get into this niche, but they need a fully licensed clinician to sign off on the work. So it's as if you are an intern and you're doing this evaluation because you have been trained by your supervisor or by your mentor. So you have already been trained. So you have been given the leeway to do the interview or maybe a supervised interview. You're writing up the report, and a fully licensed clinician comes in, reviews the report, and kind of processes everything with you about the case. And then after they get the final say, you sign off on it, and then that clinician signs off on it as well.
Wow. I mean, that's a lot of work. You might as well just, you know, get the education instead of somebody supervising you all the time.
Yeah, well, so let me clarify. So a lot of times it'll be students who are interns or associates who are not fully licensed. So they graduated with their master's degree. They're in provisional license, so they've taken their board licensure exam, and so now they're waiting for the necessary hours to become fully licensed. And so yeah, so they're working under that provisional license, and they're not quite there yet. So they want to get the if
Important.
yeah, if they want to get the experience, they can, and this is the best way to do it.
All right. Um, so where do you basically work? Do you go to their places? Do they come to you? Do you go to hospitals? Where do you basically go when you have these
Yes,
clients?
yeah. So COVID-19 really broadened up the spectrum on how we can provide services, and so you have telehealth, and so I can be anywhere and provide these psych evals. But you know, I'm really restricted to the state where in which I can practice. So as long as the client resides inside of the state of Texas, I can provide that service remotely.
Hmm.
Now, I offer several options. Either it's in my office or it's via telehealth. And so just as long as it's a safe and confidential place for them to be able to block out any distractions, I don't have any dogs barking and they're not wrestling with neighbors coming over and impeding. We can do the evaluation anywhere. I can send over assessments via email or fax. Like there's several ways that we can get this done.
That's amazing because some clients they don't have maybe the transportation to come to you.
Hmm.
So that's amazing. Um, so where does the funding source come from?
So that's a really good question. So, a lot of people, when they think about the global community or immigrants crossing the border, there is this mindset that they don't have financial resources, and a lot of them do. Now, a lot of them don't, but many of them do. Many of them speak English, broken or good, speak English. They have financial resources, or they have people, family here in the United States who have the financial resources to support them. And sometimes they petition for them. So, anyways, for me in my practice, I don't offer payment plans. It's upfront, and it's within 24 hours before the session, before our first meeting. And so maybe in the future I will offer that payment plan, but for right now it's all upfront, and it's within 24 hours prior to our first meeting.
That's amazing. Um, okay. Does your job as an immigration evaluation ever affect your mental health?
Hmm. No,
Mhm.
no, not at all. As far as me taking this home, me thinking about this and thinking about the struggles that some of these migrants and immigrants go through, it doesn't negatively impact my mental health. No, it does not. And there's several reasons for this. One is because during my master's program, the training, I took that course very serious where we had talked about how we self-care and how we do not mix and mingle our feelings and emotions in the therapy office. And so being able to compartmentalize and package this and be able to be that professional that does not take it home is something that I've kind of valued all the way up. Through my master's program, I valued that. And so, no, I don't take it home and it doesn't negatively impact me. However, I am empathetic of these cases that come across my desk, especially with the essays, the assaults, and sometimes they have physical evidence to kind of present to me, and it's kind of hard to look at. But no, I don't bring this home.
On that, what is the most what difficult case have you ever came across?
Hmm. So I've got two that I will never forget. One, it's more interesting for me. It wasn't difficult. It's just more interesting to me. So there was a an individual who was a victim of a crime. He was a victim of he was physically assaulted and he was robbed, and it was by a black man. And this gentleman was Hispanic. He was Latino, and so he had. There's already this persona, this stigma about black men in general, and for him to be physically attacked, assaulted, and then he was a victim, and the suspect was a black man or several black men. It was easy for me to do the evaluation, but it was difficult for him to work with me, and that
Okay.
and that was a challenge. That was a challenge in itself. And so, trying to remain objective and just stating facts and allowing him to express himself. And I encouraged him to be honest and forefront with his experience. That was probably one of my most interesting cases. It wasn't a challenge for me, but it was definitely difficult for him.
Yeah.
Uh, The other ones are little kids. So I've had some 9-year-olds, some preteens come in here, and they've dealt with some pretty difficult situations. And so they would tell me stories about how they traveled, crossing the Rio Grande, what they endured. There was on one case, two boys would tell me about how they were passing through the deserts. They call them the deserts, South Texas. It can appear to be a desert. So it's dry, it's hot, the weeds, like it's really bad. Um, and and so they would talk about how they would walk by bodies that were unalived, and they were on the ground. Some of them were, in skeletons, and so they would tell me those graphic stories to detail, and I would interview these kids on two separate sessions. Okay, they're two different cases, two different pieces of evidence. I would interview these kids separately, and their stories were very, very similar, and but it was told through their lens. One was, I think, 9 years old, so a little bit more immature. The other one, it was 11 years old, so their perspectives were different about the experience. But either way, it was really traumatic. You can tell it was very traumatizing for them to experience that.
So, what are ways you use to make them comfortable? Because, like you said, they're really open with you. So, what do you do?
One of the biggest things is I never try to dig or probe. The therapeutic word is probe, Probe, probe too deep into the traumatic experience. And the reason for that is because we can re-traumatize, we can cause more pain, we can cause more damage. And that is one of our ethical no-nos, our ethical and moral no-nos. We don't do that in this profession. And so, letting the client know that if it's too graphic or if it's too difficult for you to go there, we can stop right there. And so being patient, being empathetic, and really just letting them know that this is a safe place. So I'm not here to judge them. I'm not here to, determine what happens with their life. I'm here to help the courts make the best decision for both the United States government and for the family.
Wow, that was an amazing answer.
Thank you.
Um, let's see. What are things you would change about the immigration evaluation industry?
Well, I think that, for one, I think that more clinicians coming out of grad school, young clinicians coming out of grad school, and I'm not meaning by age, I mean young in the profession. I wish that young clinicians knew more about immigration psychological evaluations than there are out there. There's not enough people, mental health professionals, who come out of grad school knowing that this is actually a niche to get into. So just having the know-how, I wish there was more of us to provide services to the global community. That's probably number one. Number two, I wish that more clinicians took a training more serious. So you have professionals who have done evaluations, psychosocials, written reports, 15, 20 years, and they believe that they don't need to get a training specifically on immigration, providing services to the immigrant population. And that is very false. I think that all clinicians who are interested in getting into this niche of serving the global community need to take some type of course or training, no matter how much experience you've got, your background, it does not matter, for two reasons. One, you want to make sure that you're not malpracticing, you're not missing anything. Two, you want to be able to prove to the court, to a federal judge, that you are qualified to do this work. Now, when I talk about qualified to do this work, most of us are talking about depression, anxiety, PTSD. That is the general census of the trauma that these people may suffer from. And those of us who have been providing services in this industry, especially those who are more seasoned, 10, 15, 20 years, they know a lot about depression, anxiety, and PTSD, especially if that is their general focus in their practice. However, you need to take that step forward to understand, have a cultural competence, and understand the immigrant, the legal world, and everything that revolves around immigration evaluations. It's a total different ball game. It's a total different way to write these reports and submit them to the federal government. So I think that all clinicians need to have a specific training, no matter how much education and background you have. You need to have a specific training in immigration evaluations, period.
So how long does the training take?
They vary. So I have a course. It's at your own pace. It's 5 or 6 hours. However, some of the modules are not mandatory. They're not prerequisite. So if you have already some extensive experience in some areas in this profession, you may need to skip those videos. I've got content on marketing. If you don't want to touch on the marketing material to market your new niche, your service in immigration evaluations, you don't have to go through those modules. So, but every course is different, So some courses are self-paced, and other courses they offer in-person over the weekend or virtual over the weekend, maybe 1 or 2 day seminar. And at the end of that, you complete their course and their training, and you get all the assets emailed to you, or you get those in a different form, in a file format. So there's different ways to take a course. Usually they're not long. It's just a matter of sitting down and completing it a weekend, or spending a Saturday just knocking it out.
Oh, wow. Okay. Let's see. What advice would you give to a baby immigration or a clinician?
I, so is this baby clinician fully licensed, or are they still intern, practicum, still in grad school?
License. They just got their license. What
Yeah.
advice would you give them?
So the advice that I would give a clinician who has just recently been licensed and they are interested in doing immigration evaluations, I highly suggest that you go and join a Facebook group that I have. It's called Your Guide to Immigration Evaluations. And you want to search that Facebook group. Look at that Facebook group. I've got so many videos. I've got so much content. Look at that and see if it's right for you, if this is something that you really want to get into. And then after you are fully acclimated and you understand what it takes to be an immigration evaluator and provide these psychological evaluations, then I would start shopping for a course or a program to take, and then one that suits your specific needs.
And why did you continue your education? How come you didn't stay with just your bachelor's?
Well, my story is a little bit different. So my story, I'll give you some background information, some context to why I decided to become a fully licensed mental health professional. I went to prison. I served 5 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. I served 5 years in prison from 2004 to 2009 for a robbery. So when I was 18 years old, I committed. And so when I came home from prison, I said that I wanted to be not only a reformed convicted felon who gives back and works with troubled youth and makes sure that they don't go through the same route that I went through, but I also wanted to have the alphabets, the license. I wanted to have all the criteria needed to prove to the state that I was the most qualified individual to provide services to these at-risk youth. So that was my main motivation for becoming a licensed professional counselor. Now, I got into immigration evaluations and providing immigration services because of two people. One, my wife. She's an immigration lawyer. She's one of the top in Houston, Texas. She's great. She's a beast. She knows her stuff. So Claudia introduced me to this because she received a written report from somebody, and she was very dissatisfied with the service that she was given. It was a copy and paste template. It was poorly written. It had names wrong. It was very bad. It was a very bad product. And she said, "You can do way better than this." And so this was early on in her career before I was fully licensed. And so that was my first introduction. And then another individual, her name is Shahada, and she doesn't mind me giving her name out, but Shahada is somebody who also really encouraged me to offer this course and this training to clinicians who would be interested in getting into this niche. And so those were my two motivators for getting into immigration evaluation services.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't know your wife did. Didn't know your wife was an immigration lawyer. That's awesome. So
Yeah,
you guys
she's
just work together and complement each other.
no, so ethically, no. So she cannot just say, hey, you need a psychological evaluation. Let me send you to my husband. She cannot do that.
Okay.
All of us as professionals, we need to have a list of people on whatever our database in our back pocket to where we can say to our clients, this is who I recommend. There's about 4 or 5 people on that list, and you can give them a quick rundown. This person charges the most, but they are a doctor, they're an MD, they're a psychologist. This one here doesn't speak English, but they offer great services, and the turnaround is 3 or 4 days. Like, they can give you the rundown if they have relationships with the referrals that they have on their list. And so I am one of the individuals on her list. My practice is one of the companies on my wife's list, but I don't get a lot of referrals from my wife.
Okay. Well, that's all the questions. Thank you so much for your time, and I truly learned a lot. Well, I didn't know a lot of things, but well, now I know.
Yeah, so you're welcome to continue following my content. Just kind of peek in and feel free to join the Facebook group. I'm always here to provide, free consultations. Like I love talking about this. I love talking about providing services to the global community, no matter where you stand about immigration, because immigration is a crisis here in the United States of America. Okay, no matter what your position is, these are still human beings. These are people, and a lot of these people want an opportunity to live a better life. And so, you think about, you hear about the bridge that got crashed into by that big boat in Ohio. Did you hear about that? It was,
Ohio?
I believe it was Ohio. Don't quote me on that. So, but
Mm.
but there were construction workers who were on that bridge and they were working, and
Yes.
they were undocumented immigrants. There was like 6 or 7 who died. Okay, nobody's talking about that, but there were 6 or 7 people who were undocumented who are working on this bridge. That is evidence to show that people want to work, they want jobs, they want legal status, and they want to do it the right way. Okay, and so we need to highlight that there are lots of immigrants who provide value to this country, lots of value to this country. They
Yes.
do jobs that nobody else wants to do. They work on roofs. They work on, high altitudes, inclement weather where it's super hot, super sunny, heat stroke weather, cold ice, snow. People who don't want to do those jobs, a lot of these immigrants have that hustle and that grind in them to do them. And so
Yeah.
we need these people for our infrastructure in our country. So I value not only humanity, but the work ethic of a lot of these people who come across our border who just want the opportunity. So that's why I'm so passionate about providing this service as well.
Yeah, and you're doing an amazing job because a lot of people don't know about this profession, but more people are learning about it, and people like me who have a passion for immigration too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm glad.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So I want you to, I wanted to do this interview with you because you are a student. And that is something that I want to get into. I want to get into the schools. I want to get into these educational organizations who are pushing out grad students, young professionals, paraprofessionals, and licensed clinicians who are going out into this world who do not know about immigration evaluation services. And so that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to meet with you more than anything, because I want to get into the schools. So please go ahead, share this interview, and
I will.
make sure that your class and your the teachers, the educators, are
Yeah,
also informed about this, and they can spread this in years to come.
yeah. Yeah, we're gonna have the opportunity to like share what we learned, and I think I'm the only one who's doing immigration. Other people are doing like substance abuse and other things, so I'm very excited to share.
Yeah. So, do you have any other questions? If not, we can hop off and.
Yes, that's everything. Thank you so much.
Okay, no problem. Thank you so much for meeting with me.
All right.
Bye.